I've never seen anyone do most of these exercises in any of the gyms I train at. And yet, I think they're some of the best exercises you can do to build muscle. And in case you don't have access to the equipment required to do these, I'll give you alternatives at the end of the video. First, the flat preacher curl. What makes this different from a traditional preacher curl? Instead of using around a 45-degree incline, we're using a flat bench. Tension on the elbow flexors is greatest when the forearm is parallel to the floor. By using a flat bench, peak tension on the biceps now takes place in an even more stretched position, which likely helps with maximizing muscle growth. The only downsides are that you need to train one arm at a time and that you are shortening the biceps slightly by elevating your shoulder. However, this exercise may be especially beneficial for your brachialis and brachioradialis, since they are not being shortened at the shoulder. This can also be a helpful exercise if you train in a gym without a preacher curl bench, or where the preacher curl bench is always unavailable. Take at least a couple of seconds on the way down, pausing briefly in the full stretch. Be explosive out of the bottom position. When you're first starting this exercise, ease into things. Only go as far down as feels comfortable and go slower. You also don't need to do these on a flat bench. Any flat surface will do. I like doing these for sets of 5 to 15 reps. Next, we have the back, the T-bar row. While you might be a fan of the barbell row, I really think you should try the T-bar row instead. First, the T-bar row has a slightly biased resistance profile. When the back is stretched at the bottom of the rep, the external moment arm is largest, amplifying the loaded stretch. In contrast, at the top of the rep, the moment arm decreases, making that portion of the lift easier. This is a big deal since the top of the rep is hardest, but also least beneficial for muscle growth. Finally, the T-bar row forces you to do lengthened partials, since the rep ends when the plate touches your torso. For all these reasons, I think the T-bar row is underrated and should replace the barbell row as the default bent over row variation. Unfortunately, while T-bar rows were quite popular back in the day when Arnold did them, I see next to no one doing them nowadays. I like doing them for sets of 5 to 12 reps, as higher reps can cause too much systemic fatigue to hit local failure in the upper back muscles. As far as technique goes, grab a V handle for the best stretch in your upper back, and get your back as close to horizontal as possible. This will increase stretch on the lats. To maximize resistance in the stretch, start the rep with a weight just barely hovering off the floor. A common mistake is to heave your chest up and down during the rep. Instead, direct the stimulus to your back. Your torso should remain static. This next exercise, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do, and it's one of the better tricep exercises, the dumbbell skull-over. The dumbbell skull-over is a hybrid of the skull crusher and pull-over exercise. While no one ever does these, they're likely a pretty solid all-around tricep builder, especially for the long head of the triceps. See, your triceps serve to extend the elbow, but the long head of the triceps is also responsible for extending your shoulder. That's why you feel a deeper stretch in overhead extensions compared to pushdowns. Dumbbell skull-overs combine both functions of the long head, which maximizes stretch on the long head while still effectively training the rest of the triceps. From my coaching experience, this can also be a good variation to try if you experience some elbow pain during most skull crusher exercises. I like doing these for sets of 10 to 20 reps. To do these, set up just like you would for a skull crusher, but slide up further on the bench, and have the dumbbell directly above your shoulder. From here, break at the elbow and shoulder simultaneously. Go down, making sure you reach full tricep stretch at the bottom by flexing your elbow fully. Pause briefly and extend explosively. If you've never done these, they might feel a bit odd, but in all likelihood, these are great overall tricep builders. This next one is one of the most underrated shoulder exercises. Many of these exercises are included in MyoAdapt, the smartest training app out there. MyoAdapt is a coach in your pocket. We've been working on it for years, utilizing all the latest science to develop an app that delivers highly effective muscle building workouts tailored to you as an individual. Go to myoadapt.com and sign up with your email to be notified when MyoAdapt finally launches, and you'll get a chance to sign up with a lifetime discount. The twisted cable face pull takes a gym classic and improves on it. By training one arm at a time, we're able to achieve a few things. First, and most importantly, we're able to achieve a much greater stretch in the rear delts than with a regular face pull. Since the role of the rear delts is to abduct the shoulder, Twisting away stretches the rear delt more. Second, if you have any size imbalances, this exercise is an opportunity to remedy them. To perform these, set the cable at shoulder height. Unrack the cable and twist away from the cable just over 90 degrees. You should feel a deep stretch in your rear delts. I like going quite heavy on these. Since face pulls are a compound movement, and you have to perform them one side at a time, going heavier makes sure we hit local muscular failure. Sets of 5 to 12 reps are the sweet spot. Doing these seated can reduce the stabilization required. If I had to do one face pull variation for muscle growth, this would be it. Next, we have a quadricep exercise. We have quite a few studies in the quads showing that focusing on the stretch increases muscle growth. Most notably, 2 studies. The first, by Pedrosa and colleagues, found greater muscle growth in the vastus lateralis and rectus femoris when doing stretched half reps on a leg extension compared to full range of motion reps. The second study, which I am an author on, compared leg extensions with the hips more extended versus more flexed. Extending the hips led to up to 50 to 170% more growth of the rectus femoris. Since the leg extension won't achieve a full stretch on the quads and rectus femoris, we need to look to different quad isolation exercises. I've spoken at length, pun intended, about the reverse Nordic curl and sissy squat being better than the leg extension for muscle growth. But the truth is, there is a third, super underrated exercise, the cable leg extension. It has the same benefits as the reverse Nordic curl and sissy squat. It extends the hips, stretching rectus femoris, and allows for full knee flexion range of motion. It's effectively a stretched half rep, since the ground limits your range of motion. It allows you to train one leg at a time, helping with left to right imbalances. To set this up, use an ankle strap. Attach the strap to your ankle. Face the cable stack and kneel down. Unrack the weight and extend your hips fully. Extend your knee explosively, control the weight back up for around 2 seconds, and pause briefly in the stretch. You'll feel a deep stretch in your whole quads. If you're not strong enough for reverse Nordic curls or sissy squats, or you just don't want to do them using regressions, you can do this instead. I've never seen anyone do these, but I think they're underrated. The next 2 exercises or calisthenics movements I haven't seen anyone do. The first is Pelican curls. While calisthenics athletes often describe this as the best bicep exercise, regular gym goers continue to sleep on it. Yes, it involves some stabilization, and your shoulder flexors are involved. It's not the best bicep exercise and can't 100% compete against more of an isolation movement like a preacher curl. But it offers an insane loaded stretch and requires minimal equipment. By getting your arm behind you and extending your elbow fully alongside your shoulder, you're stretching the biceps completely. The biceps perform elbow flexion and shoulder flexion, after all. These are best done pretty heavy. They're challenging, and the amount of stabilization involved makes them best suited to lower rep ranges. When you first start doing these, you may need to stay a bit more upright. To progress the movement, just go more horizontal with time. When you're just starting out, go slow and only go as far down as you feel comfortable doing. In a similar vein, one of the most underrated chest builders, ring flies. These are the bodyweight equivalent of the dumbbell fly. Dumbbell flies are one of the best chest builders out there, and ring flies rival dumbbell flies. The only hang-up is how challenging the movement is. That said, to regress the movement and make it easier, just stay a bit more upright, just like for the Pelican curl. You could also do eccentric only, and then do a push-up to get back up. I like going heavy for these, just like for the Pelican curl. Your pecs are primarily responsible for shoulder horizontal adduction. The tension on the pecs increases as you lower yourself, exposing your pecs to an insane loaded stretch. Ease into these and enjoy. Home gym owners will particularly appreciate these 2 options. For the triceps, one of the most underrated movements is the dumbbell overhead extension. While the cable pushdown and cable overhead extension see more use, the dumbbell overhead extension really should not be forgotten about. This used to be a staple in the training of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kevin Levrone, and many more. Few tricep isolation movements beat it in terms of versatility. First, its effectiveness. It places a deep stretch on the long head of the triceps, since the shoulder is flexed. It also stretches the other heads of the triceps. Make sure you get into full elbow flexion at the bottom. You can also perform it seated and remove much of the stabilization required.
It isolates the triceps, making sure they're trained close to failure. Since you can use decent loads, it's easy to progress it. You can either add weight week to week or add reps. Second, it's time efficiency. Of any tricep exercise, this ranks very highly. The amount of stimulus you get is incredible compared to how long it takes to perform. Grab a dumbbell, fling it overhead, get started with this highly effective exercise. You can train both arms at once. Nearly everyone has access to it as well.
For all those reasons, dumbbell overhead extensions should be one of your main tricep exercises. Finally, our last exercise trains the hamstrings. Yep, I saved the most boring muscle group for last. While many swear by the Romanian deadlift, and it's a great exercise, the Smith Machine Good Morning still doesn't get its flowers. It's just as effective for the hamstrings, glutes, and adductors as a Romanian deadlift. The lower body positioning is similar. You get a deep stretch in the hamstrings by keeping the knees back, and you get a great stretch in all the hip extensors by getting into deep hip flexion. The exercise is also harder in the stretch position and easier in the contracted position.
However, compared to a Romanian deadlift, it takes far less time to do. You typically use 30 to 40% less weight, which saves time on loading plates. Most Smith machines also already have the plates nearby. Finally, if you're a fellow member of the #longarm gang, you don't need to set up a deficit to get a full stretch. The only downside is that you don't get to train your upper traps or your forearms, I guess. Basically, similar effectiveness as the Romanian deadlift, but with some additional benefits. And yet, no one does these.
I just gave you 9 underrated exercises you should be doing. Not sure why I landed on 9 again, but here we are. If you'd like to support the channel and get some nice clothing in the process, go to rascalapparel.com and use code WOLF at checkout for 10% off. As promised, here are some alternative exercises if you don't have the equipment. Dr. Milo Wolf, more underrated exercises. Peace.